I just want our viewers to, like this video. You're liking this when it starts playing is very important, because I'm told that the algorithm that is used looks at how many people are liking it right at the beginning, and then more people get presented with this video, and thereby the video has a better chance of going viral. I mean, this is what I've been told, but and I'd like to see, the message get to as many people as possible. That is why this request. Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer, and today Sri RBS Mani is joining with me as we continue to go through this security lapse. We should call it something worse than that, perhaps, because when we see all the news that is coming out, it is really, really turning out to be something rather disturbing. So to get a little bit more about how many things were broken as far as protocol is concerned, this is a prime minister, and when a prime minister comes visiting a state, a lot of things should have taken place, and those did not. Unless we understand how many levels of breakdown happened, we cannot think about suggesting a fix. So to know all these things, let us listen to Sri RBS Mani, as he is very intimately familiar with all these protocols. Mr. Mani, so right from the get-go, when the Prime Minister lands at the airport, things were amiss, wasn't it?
Most of them were, it was amiss, there is no doubt about it. The CM is expected to receive the Prime Minister. He was busy. In one of the interviews, he had claimed that he was suffering from COVID. But few hours later, he was having an interview with Sudhir Chaudhary of Zee News. So to how much truth there is there in that, I cannot comment. But these are the two pictures I want to say. The DGP, the Home Secretary of the state, etc., are supposed the normal protocol. He is the PM of the country. He is not any visiting opposition leader. So these are all essentials which should have been taken place. If the chief minister was down with some ailment, he should have sent a minister in waiting. That is the protocol. If there was no minister in waiting, no DGP was not there, he should have sent the additional DGP. These are all normal protocols. See, it is not that DGP can't be present everywhere, certainly, given that although the PM's visit is the highest priority, but in the case of his own, in any other compulsions, Home Secretary or the DGP's compulsion, they should have assigned an officer of adequate seniority to stand in place of these two functionaries. That is what I wanted to say. So these are all. See, whether going Ori is a different issue. That's beyond our control. These are all the things which should have been controlled but have not been covered. So I'm only talking of the lapses, on the human lapses, man-made lapses. So these have happened, and that is the reason a contingency arose. And because of the inclement weather, inclement weather, they could not have taken a risk given the recent mishap of the CDS which happened just 1 month back. So on that, we should grant it to them that the decision to change the route or change the mode of transportation was very much valid, very much legitimate, given the contingent situation, the weather and all that. Beyond that, and the SPG doesn't take its own action, they are in coordination with the fields, the state government, and without the state government clearing that, the weather could he is going to travel by road, this program could not have fructified. They would never have approved it. If the state government had any problems, compulsions, they could have simply declined, saying that honorable PMs may be kindly requested to recalibrate, reschedule his program due to the air inclement weather not permitting travel by air, and we have yet to clear the road route or something like that. Or he could have waited, whatever it is. Those things he was allowed to travel and travel quite a distance. So these are very
Yes,
obvious.
indeed.
Right,
Yeah.
please.
So we had this problem, and then the Prime Minister is made to wait for about 20 minutes on a flyover, And I don't know what was the deliberations that were going on at that point of time, but there was a real danger that the flyover could have been also cut off from the other side. And now a video has surfaced. It may have surfaced last year too. We don't know that there was a video that was used using animation and cartoons, Animatoon they're called, that surfaced of something very similar to what really happened. In that described in that Animatoon, and that was released on the 30th of November 2020. That's the earliest I could find. Now, this means somebody is harboring very deep animosity towards the Prime Minister of Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. You can fault him for not implementing policy. You can fault him for not completing things in a certain way. But he is a very hardworking man, and he is someone who understands and respects every religion and every sentiment. There is, absolutely no way you can say, oh, he's ignoring this, he's ignoring that. That is not what you see about Narendra Modi. Then yet, why do you think there is such a deep hatred towards Modi ji? I'm really stunned. Why haven't the government come out and said this is the particular video, it was released by this group is based in this country, and we have told them that this incites hate speech? Why haven't the government done? At least if they have done it, I am not aware of it. Are you aware of it,
I,
Vaniji?
not to my knowledge, but you have touched several important points. I do not. I really agree with you that he is a hard-working person. He is working harder than any of his predecessors anywhere during the 75 years of independent India. Having said that, what is most important, even if he was not working, it is incumbent upon the state government as the on the visit of the Prime Minister to protect him. Number one. Number two, nobody is flagging a very, very important point in this context. Prime Minister was stuck in for 20 minutes on the top of a flyover, very close to the Punjab-Pakistan border. And Punjab is the place where there have been series of drone attacks just 6 months back. Was it a target practice? This is a dimension nobody in the debate has ever touched upon it. What were they trying? Number three was, that means there was a blueprint. As more and more information emerged, it seems there was a blueprint. It was a design, not just a design. It was a blueprint that you have to execute it like this. The only thing which became their force multiplier was inclement weather. But other than the weather not being there, had the weather been okay and had it traveled by helicopter, they might have in fact recalibrated and come out with something else. And the preparation time was quite adequate because they traveled from Bathinda to Firozpur, and he had gone well into the major part of the travel. So that travel time by surface transport would have given the conspirators from across the border or within the state itself. We do not know who is the conspirator. A blueprint was there. Blueprint is still there. I appeal to the citizens of India that nothing is more important for the prestige of this country than the life of the Prime Minister. That is number one. We have to be making no mistakes about this. Number two, not only the prestige, number two, as a Prime Minister, as an individual, has been unprecedentedly delivering on several fronts, whether you like it or not, but his direction is towards the interest of the nation. The momentum of his delivery is the interest of the nation, not he has got nothing, no personal, he is not developing, he is not executing anybody's agenda but the national agenda. This is second point which should keep in mind. So, and incidentally, the geographical contours of where the attack happened and its proximity to the bordering country, etc., very clear, which has been giving a lot of trouble within the country, in our own country. It is very clear it was an unholy agenda of somebody else. Whether we have enemies within, we are enemies outside, these are all something which needs to be brought out properly. They have adequate intelligence. Our agencies, I've always been holding this view in for almost 20 years that the agencies are extremely competent to dig out that, but agencies do not have the power of investigation and collecting evidence, and that is also one of the reasons. But my most important point here is we should not allow the conspirators to go scot free. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. And so let's see at the look at the fallout. The DGP of Punjab was called to Delhi, was asked to explain, I believe, and then he has now been removed from that position. We don't know what happened. Is he going to be cashiered? Is he going to be let go under 56J? Is he being sent back to his state cadre? That information I do not have in my possession. My point I'm trying to say is, how can just one individual be responsible? Clearly, whoever it is that wanted to cause trouble, they had information on every minute of the way. So that means there was a major leak in the entire security setup. So, Maniji, is DGP being transferred or taken out of the post enough? What about the chief minister?
You have hit the bullseye. See, it is simply very easy and playing to the public gallery, and our people are very easily satisfied. They are Ashutoshas. Very simply, they are happy. But the question is larger issue. We know on earlier occasions certain false terror cases were foisted on that. They are getting acquitted recently. That's a matter of fact. I do not want to educate on that. That's a different story. But the real perpetrators were allowed to go scot free, whether it is Samjhauta Abbas or what is happening today in the Malegaon or whatever it is. Similarly, here also, by just making a scapegoat out of a DGP or a chief secretary or a DIG or a constable, we should not allow the real conspirators to go scot free. That is my basic refrain. I have been shouting for even on the first day. The conspiracy is much more deep rooted. It should not be allowed to take, it should not be set at rest. It should be allowed, and the entire thing should be unearthed, and the real conspirators, whomsoever it may be, howsoever powerful he may be or she may be, they should be brought to book. It is not that just pick up a Babu and pick up a DGP or pick up a DIG or pick up a superintendent of police and suspend him or action against him. Or yes, if he had colluded, even he should be brought. He should be made to face the law. If there have been people in the Punjab police or Punjab security establishment colluding in this entire thing, they should be allowed to face the law, not just see the dismissal or a 56J or a 301 311 2 are all sanctions. They are not fit to continue in service. They cannot be trusted with the public trust. For that, they need to be removed. That's a different story. But the major issue is, what about the penal offenses which they do it for compromising? First, attacking, compromising and colluding to attack a individual, number one. The sitting prime minister, number two. See, there are many aspects of it. It is simply attempt to murder and attempt to murder the prime minister. There are two offenses which can be made. There may be many more: conspiracy, suppression of evidence, so many things, 120B or whatever it is, etc., etc. That can keep on adding to list. One is, as a citizen of India, you try to attempt it. Number two, as the most premier citizen of India, as the prime minister, elected, democratically elected prime minister of the country, you wanted to bring it, you wanted to colluding with other people. And whether you like him or not, it is not acceptable. So that means the constitutional machinery has failed. The constitutional machinery's failure means there are adequate provisions under 356 and other provisions of the Constitution. Whether the government will, the Union of India or the President of India, on the advice of the cabinet ministers, take a recourse to this or not is again a question which only time will answer.
But, sir, let me ask you a different question. Now, elections have been announced to Punjab. You can't dismiss a government that is facing elections by using 356 now. That will become an election issue, right? You have a
That is the
mode of model conduct point now, model code of conduct.
absolutely right. But that is only a provision. See, supposing, let us assume there is a situation, this was also a war against the state. An attempt of the Prime Minister is like waging a war against India. Similarly, if there is a war against India in the state of Punjab, will the 356 not be invoked? It is similar to that, irrespective of what is the situation, whether the election stands announced or not. Number two, Union of India is not going to run the administration. If the election has been announced, the CEC takes control of it. He will have to, they will take over the administration and ensure that the elections are held.
So next question that I have is, Mr. Mani, overall, there are a lot of institutions that have been formed or framed, but nothing really is happening. And one of the institutions is what I call as the Lokpal. This was under Supreme Court's urging, or whatever you want to call it, nudging. The Lokpal for the center has been constituted, and now, but I don't see any activity with them. So who has to send the thing to Lokpal? Can you send a complaint to Lokpal? I'm just going to show you the current constitution of the Lokpal, the members that comprise the Lokpal. Can you have that picture, please? There you go. So this is the Lokpal.
I do not know whether the Lokpal's rules allow direct complaints by the members of the public. How much of that efficacy has been validated? These are all because, as you said, it's a dysfunctional, or it is, whether it's a functional Lokpal, it's a non-functional, or whatever it is. We cannot comment on this. Lokpal is a very sacrosanct institution. We all know that. So, in such a context, the members should be of unimpeachable integrity. I mean, integrity beyond doubt and beyond a very high level of benchmark. Otherwise, this Lokpal really needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. You have taken out two members, one judicial member. Let us see the record. If people, of course, if Ishrat Jahan case stands concluded and done and dusted, and the falsehood of Ishrat Jahan case, peddled by the media and so many other vested interests, have been set to rest. Look, it was a direct attack on the chief minister of the state. I am very intricately, very closely involved in that. On 1st December 2011, there was an order passed by the honorable judge. Very fair enough, people had approached the court and they had to pass an order. But what went into the order was the very unprecedented thing of allowing the victim of a kin of a victim, or the relative next of the kin of the victim's request to associate the victim. Let us be very clear now, it is established beyond doubt that the victim was a terrorist. Both the victims whose kin had approached, who were Indians and whose kin had approached this high court, were terrorists, and they were, other two victims were Pakistani nationals legally living in India. These are all established facts. I have nothing to do about it. And there, the two Indian victims' kin were allowed to introduce or associate a police officer of their own choice in the entire special investigation process. And this has come out from the honorable judge, which was, I think it is the most unprecedented in the judicial history of the country. I do not know of any such instance like that. Having said that, another officer you had named, we are administrative member of the Lokpal, which you had indicated. is a person who had tried to change the narrative and frame the same honorable Home Minister, now Prime Minister of India, but how much, albeit unsuccessfully. This is also a matter of record. It is something which I have said in my affidavit before the Honorable Supreme Court on the 19th August 2014. And how, where all the instances were shared there. In the case Criminal Writ Petition 128 of 2013. So these two are there. So how what will be the efficacy of the? I do not have anything against any of these members, including these two members, excepting that this is the level of integrity. Whether does it qualify as integrity of the highest standard is a question I need to pose before the listeners. I have nothing to comment on this. These are all facts I thought I will share with you since you asked me this question. So how?
One of the things that I'm thinking of, Mr. Mani, is that you're constituting a body that is supposed to be the ultimate in terms of probity in public life. Why not have let the people who know these some of these people from real life experiences come in and vote? Give that also. Tell them that these are the members that we are thinking of. This is the list that we have finalized, and if you have any grievances, and if you have grievances, we need some facts on why you think somebody is not fit to occupy. Basically, I'm trying to bring the hearings that happens in Senate and in the House in the United States, where if a certain person of being appointed to an important post, that person has to pass the litmus test. India needs to have this in place.
Certainly some sort of a public consultation would have done a
Yeah,
lot. Put it, now it is all online, put it on website,
yeah.
announce it that DOPT, Department of Personal Training website is there. Kindly convey your comments, convey your observations, your personal whatever it is. Let the public who have interacted with them, let them come and decide who should be the Lokpal. And like as I said, if you can produce certain evidences, as I have already sworn in on a Supreme Court and filed it before the Supreme Court, such instances as can be highlighted, that will be taken into consideration before appointing members of the Lokpal. It will have done very great things had it happened. But I don't know this Lokpal, how publicly it was. I do not know even where from you pulled it out. Because I was still under the impression that the Lokpal is not at a very, very uh, speedily functioning institution. Of course, the choice of, the domain expert of the members are extremely good. That indirect taxes is importantly, the chairman of the indirect taxes retired are all extremely important. The chairman of a infrastructure company is also extremely good. But whether the people who occupy the post decorate the post or they have something on their back, that is one thing which the public needs to know. Right.
Now, see, we're going to conclude this conversation. I just want to give some helpful pointers. The lokpal.gov.in, which is what I just happened to, I was just Googling Lokpal and this thing came up, and that's how I looked at the thing. Now, this website can have public hearings. And you can have a certain amount of a barrier or something that you can judge that this is something worthy of being taken up by Lokpal. Once you pass that test, then you can have 1 hour window, 2 hour window, whereby the person who has the grievance can come and submit to these members, one or two, as the case may be, and see whether there is a merit in their complaint. And once that thing is passed, so first of all, whether it is a worthy case. Second is whether the case has merit. Once that happens, then the Lokpal can start looking into it in more detail. I mean, I'm completely clueless as to how this is going to be functioning. And having all these, whoever it is, these members I don't know what they are doing. No idea what is going on. No idea how the people can go and submit their grievances, and if how they respond back. Because if you look at the Pegasus case now, Supreme Court has told general people, they published advertisements in the newspaper saying that anybody who thinks that their phone was hacked by Pegasus, can you please give us the phone? We will take it and then we will return it back to you. And they keep it for like a 24-hour period where I think they dump the images to kind of find out if there is signatures of Pegasus on there, something. They're just going to do some forensics. This is a good beginning that the Supreme Court has started for Pegasus. Perhaps Lokpal can do something very similar to make it look forward. I mean, we have so many cases of corruption sitting around, and isn't it the job of the Lokpal to make sure that these things are addressed? I'm just giving some suggestions, Maniji. I don't know if you've been following the Pegasus case. Clearly, the Supreme Court is being very proactive there. I
Certainly,
commend them
certainly.
for it.
No, it is certainly appreciable in the Pegasus case, but the Pegasus case, the Supreme Court got itself seized of the matter. But here, the Lokpal has to take a lot of a more suo moto thing. And the suo moto situation also, they can, instead of, as you said, whether it's a fit case or not, let them give pre-qualification criteria of what all qualifies for an investigation or a arraignment by the Lokpal. Even pre-qualification criteria, that these are all the benchmarks which needs to be addressed should a Lokpal hear on this. This is one part of the story. But see, basically, what we are being confronted. You raise the issue of Lokpal corruption and all that. Extremely good. We need to address it. I hope the Lokpal and others will expedite the issue in the matter. But at the same time, besides the Lokpal of economic corruption, we are suffering from many other intellectual corruptions within the service. As I have said in the present case which we started off, the absence of the DGP or a Home Secretary and non-deputation of a officer similar to rank if they were predisposed. Does it not point to certain things? That it is not simply a case of economic corruption, but it is a sort of a intellectual corruption or some other something beyond that involvement, some collusion somewhere. And here it has reached. See, this type of attitude has made us to reach a situation where even the PM's life has been put on stake. Practically, it was put on stake, and mind you, nobody. I again flag the drone attack was very much possible. What saved, I think that is one of the biggest, because I think he's a hardworking and India needs him, so that is how it was saved. So, who was there? Because what is that beyond this? How officers are behaving like this? Were they following orders? Were they following blueprints? This type of recruitment into the civil service of politically committed civil service has been there. Politically committed certain judicial levels have also been established. And what we saw in the Lokpal was only, or the antecedents of Lokpal was, they have nothing to hide. They were only carrying out because they were recruited. They had their commitments to political bosses. Maybe I presume, but that is what it could be. But how to stop that? Tomorrow, if I am there, maybe Mr. X is there. He is very close to the present Prime Minister, and the opposing Prime Minister come, and if he puts the life of that Prime Minister at stake, will it be acceptable? We are setting a very bad precedent. The entire committed bureaucracy should be washed away. It is not one, it is not two, it has been for several years. I request my listeners to kindly go through the Sunday Guardian paper of 22nd April 2018, where I have said that, without taking names, I will not take any names even now. Or please if you can recall, a new sex. See, Hindu terror is which I have seen it happening, a lie being put on the, which I resisted. I was transferred in June 2010. If you go through the new sex clipping, if you can find, anybody can find it, kindly share it. The anchor was Rahul Shivshankar. That time he was working with New Sex, now with Times of India, Times Now. The correspondent was Geeta Mohan. Now she is working with India Today. An RTA reply was placed before, somewhere in June 2017 it was placed. 16, June 2016. A noting on the Home Ministry recorded in July 2010 that there are some, without any basis, there are by a joint secretary, there are some cases of Hindu terror which needs to be investigated. This is what it was written. This is an RTA reply I am quoting. I am not saying anything else. Out of my mind or out of my bias or anything like that. Incidentally, the Joint Secretary at that time is now the DG of Election Commission. I got nothing more to say. Can you expect such a person, a committed bureaucrat, to do an objective election? So you go on and on and on. You go. I'm not saying there are very highly integrative vested bureaucrats. There are many of them. Because see, the entire civil services going and being torn apart in several directions by the set of committed bureaucrats who are able to honorably. The present honorable Prime Minister is a very hard-working man. He has the nation's interest. He has got some excellent ideas which could turn around the nation's stature, including maybe a 5 trillion economy, or in 15 years a 10 trillion economy is not far-fetched. But in spite of all that, what is happening, whether you anti-reform groups, and thereafter somebody advising the honorable Prime Minister to reform, to retreat from the reforms, is there anything beyond that? We are having economic advisors, chief economic advisors brought in from outside. Let me share it. I have worked in several ministries and I have seen many of the economists post, economic advisors posted in these ministries. Incidentally, they belong to the Indian Economic Service. And young, bright minds are recruited at the age of 23, 24. Some of them develop into very brilliant economists with lot of idea. Now, for example, we all know Sanjeev Sanyal is a very prominent person. Why can't he be made the chief economic advisor? He has got all the wherewithal. Why do you have to bring out somebody from SOS, London or Harvard, USA or Oxford or Cambridge? Why do you? Does it not go against the grain of Atmanirbharta? I personally know at least two officers with whom I have closely worked. Their vision of the economics in respect of their domain was much. One name I would say, I didn't want to take any negative, for negative purpose, no names were taken. But certainly for a sense of appreciation, anybody could have interacted with one Urvashi Sadhwani, and another gentleman I met was in the Urban Development Ministry called Mr. Bal, Anand Singh. These two are brilliant economists, but they got into the Babu doom and doomed. The country was doomed. So I'm not saying only these two. There may be brilliant many and many more economists. They are not allowed to come. Why can't we make that? Why do you have to bring a Mukund Raghuram Rajan or somebody else? And or a Kaushik Basu or this or that? Why can't we have? You have a homegrown economist of a huge numbers. So that at least will ensure that they will be loyal to the country. They can give you ideas as you give them leave them uncluttered, give them the targets, give them what do you want to achieve. They will come and give you a roadmap. But
Well,
the Atmanirbharta is still there itself. That's what I say. Because who is
I,
allowing this to happen? Who is bringing these foreign economists like Harvard and UK to India? Economics
yes,
is one
and
area. Tomorrow, will you bring a foreign Yale professor as a cabinet secretary? Will they bring a Yale professor as a cabinet secretary, or a SIPRI Sweden, somebody from Stockholm, to bring him as a foreign secretary? I don't think. So many things needs to be done, and if that is what is going to happen, that SIPRI fellow comes as a foreign secretary and a Yale person coming as a cabinet secretary, then life of the prime minister is certainly not safe.
so, in conclusion, let's try and agree that a few things have to happen. Transparency in selection of people for the more critical job. That needs to be something where, they say that justice should not only be fair, but appear to be fair. Same way, some of these appointments should not only be correct, but it should also appear to be the best choice amongst a pool of contestants. So these kinds of things are very important. Otherwise, what happens is, the prime minister has a real problem. Whom to trust? That is to me, it's every day he probably wakes up and wonders, hey, who do I trust? How do I know this guy is saying the truth, and how do I know that guy is lying? If it's the other way around? So there is this rot that has set in the system. I think we need to look into that more closely. But I think certainly a start has been made. Let us see if the other organizations also start adopting more transparent methods. Mr. Mani, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your thoughts on this. Please, viewers, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We can continue to give you good quality programming, but for that, we need your support. Thank you very much, Mr. Mani, and thanks
Thank you.
once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.